Hello there, Lunar Squadron, and welcome back to the channel. We have a surprise late Christmas gift as a brand new interview just dropped with the Ubisoft massive narrative director, Navid Khavari, all about Star Wars Outlaws. And in this rather lengthy interview, we actually got a lot of new story and gameplay details, as well as some additional context for some information that we already knew about the game. And today we are going to sit down and break down everything that you need to know about all of this information, because there's a lot of exciting stuff in here and a lot of great stuff to analyze. But before we do that, if you're new to the channel, we would love to have you as always. And the way to do that, just go down below this video, hit that little subscribe button, the bell notification right on next to it. It'll notify you every single time that Andreas and I upload. Now with that out of the way, Andreas, are you ready to talk about some Star Wars Outlaws today?
Oh yeah, let's get into this, guys. Today's article is out of Kotaku.com. It is written by Tom Reagan, and it recaps an interview that Kotaku had with narrative director Navid Khavari over at Ubisoft Massive. And Nick, we've got a lot of great details, so I'm just going to crack on straight into it with this first quote here. "We always knew we wanted to create an original scoundrel story. There was something exciting about looking at this universe from the perspective of a scoundrel like Kay, who has no experience with the Empire, Jedi, Rebellion, or the Sith." Nick, I hadn't particularly realized that it was possible to have no experience with the Empire at this time period.
Yeah, that's true. And this is something that over the last handful of months that Ubisoft Massive has really made a point about conveying with this character, Kay, that she doesn't have ties to any of these familiar factions that we have come to know and love in Star Wars. You'll be able to go in whatever direction you want in this game, because her allegiances don't lie with anybody but herself and Nyx, and I guess her ship. Like, she's out there caring about herself versus a greater cause like the Rebellion or something like that. So we're not going to be tied to those factions in this game, which is incredibly exciting. And that is portrayed by this follow-up quote that says, "This is a character who is just trying to get by, stealing, outwitting, and conning folks. I would love for folks playing the game to really get a sense of what it might feel like to step into the underworld." I love this quote. I just love what this game is going to set forth to try and accomplish, and that is just give us more information about the underworld of Star Wars, because this is a thing that is so damn interesting when it comes to Star Wars, but it really hasn't been given proper justice yet. Like, yeah, we have some of the comic lines, and we've seen some of it in some of the animated shows, and like we've gotten little tastes of it here and there, but to have a game dedicated strictly to the underworld side of Star Wars is going to be incredibly exciting, especially within the setting that it is set in.
That is exactly right, Nick. And directly on that point, the interview goes on to say, Outlaws follows the Battle of Hoth at a time when the Empire is ruling the galaxy with an iron fist. Nick, what I love about this context here, we've known for a while now that this game is going to take place between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, but it's nice to hear this within the context of landmarks that we are familiar with, being the Battle of Hoth. We know that this is going to be after the Battle of Hoth, and other references within the galaxy far, far away in this time period. For me, Nick, my mind goes straight to War of the Bounty Hunters, which is a comic line that falls squarely within that period of The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. That comic line does head-on address the underworld of Star Wars and the fight over Han Solo frozen in carbonite, which, of course, we do see in the cinematic trailer. So I'm wondering how much this game is going to dig into that bounty hunter conflict, and that's really something that I am very jazzed about and hope features in this game in a big way.
Yeah, me too. And I gotta say, this was probably one of my favorite segments from this entire interview, because like you said, we already knew that this game was taking place between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. That's not new. But it is incredibly fascinating to see him point out the Battle of Hoth directly. And the reason he does that is because with this follow-up quote where he goes, "The rebels are on the back foot, and while everyone is caught up and somewhat distracted by the ongoing civil unrest, there's a vacuum that creates the perfect opportunity for the underworld to rise and gain power out of sight of Imperial rule." And so here, we just get some insight as to where the Lucasfilm story group was, where Ubisoft Massive is coming from. Like, here we have the Empire at the height of their power. They're driving the rebels into the ground right now. Like, they just dominated them at the Battle of Hoth, where the rebels barely get away. And so now there's this vacuum being created where the Empire is so powerful and so oblivious. It's kind of like, Andor, where he's like, they can't even, get out of their own way. All they see is their own arrogance. Kind of a similar thing here, where now this vacuum has been created that allows these crime syndicates and underworld people to rise up in the shadows and claim some of this power for themselves, because the Empire is so obsessed with pushing the rebellion down, suppressing that rebellion. And what I want to talk about here is where this game is set between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi is a very fragile area to place a story, because whatever happens in this game has to make sense connecting between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Whatever happens to the characters that show up in this game, if they're mainstay characters like Jabba the Hutt, like whatever happens to Jabba the Hutt in this game, he has to be in his palace at the start of Return of the Jedi. And the reason I bring that up is a lot of people are mad at Ubisoft Massive for not having a full create your own character, create your own story thing going on in this game. But to me, that doesn't really make sense because of where this game is set. And, I can't imagine that the Lucasfilm story group and just Lucasfilm in general would feel comfortable with that. Like, they're going to very carefully craft their stories, especially in such an iconic era such as this, where everything that happens has to make sense. I think that is the main reason why we're not getting a full-blown create your own character experience. That's because Ubisoft Massive has to tailor a very careful story here within this iconic era. And at the end of the day, Andreas, this is still a narrative-driven game, and I think some people just kind of misunderstand the intentions of this game because it has some of those open-world components and some of those RPG components. But to show that frustration against a dev team and against a game that hasn't even come out yet seems a little unfair to me. But getting back to the article itself and open world stuff in general, he continues by saying, focusing on the open world game aspect allowed us to build out a deeply immersive Star Wars journey. We wanted to create a scoundrel who has never experienced anything like this before. She hasn't figured it all out yet and doesn't have all the right answers all the time. I hope players will see a bit of themselves in Kay. So here you go. He's directly addressing it, Andreas. He wants people to kind of see themselves in Kay in the way she experiences this, because she's not a part of the rebellion. She's not part of the Empire. She's going to get thrown into this universe and she's going to experience it for the first time, which honestly, I'm very excited to see how she reacts to these situations. But this kind of provides some of the insight that we were just talking about, like why they chose to do the things they're doing, because they're kind of limited by what they can allow players to can and not do in this game.
That they are, and directly on that point, Nick, we see Navid is trying so hard here to express how the team is crafting a character that they want people to relate with. They want people to see a bit of themselves in Kay, and we've seen over the past couple of weeks a lot of comments of people saying that they are going to flat out be unable to relate to this character just because she's a woman, and I just think that is such a narrow-minded approach to this game. I think if you are unable to relate to someone because of their gender and you can't think of anything else that you could relate to with a person, I think you might want to just take a little bit more of an open-minded approach to things. Give the character a chance. Maybe sit down and give the game a try and see what they're actually trying to do with this character before judging a character just from the outset. Especially when in a story like this, you are going to be given the opportunity to make certain choices in this game and impact the story in different ways. And we'll get into that a bit later. But first, on that note, on the gameplay note, Nick, we have some more information on the gameplay loop in this game. Khavari explained that the gameplay loop will be split into 3 different types of experiences, the first of which I'm really excited about. Quote here is, "The first of these is dense cities bustling with activity and lively cantinas where you might find criminal syndicates and corrupt Imperials mingling together." Nick, this is something that we've learned already, that we will have these dense cities, but I love Navid driving home this point yet again, that dense cities are one of the 3 pillars of gameplay for this game, and that's really something that if you think back to recent AAA games, I haven't really gotten the dense, bustling city vibe from recent games in the Star Wars universe, and that's something that I've always wanted. It's something that I saw in the Eclipse trailer, for example, like the dense cities in that trailer, and I was very looking forward to that until, that whole fiasco. But it's looking like we will get to experience bustling cities in the Star Wars universe here with Star Wars Outlaws. So I'm really excited about that. The second pillar here is vast, mysterious, and stunning open environments. This is like what we've seen with Tashara, and he says, whether on foot or K-Speeder. I'm thinking that he's addressing directly what we saw with the gameplay demonstration on Tashara, where you saw that beautiful, sprawling open environment that they have created. And then the third pillar here is space, which players can explore on Kay's ship. And really, I think if they do bulk out all three of these areas of this game, we are looking at an open world that is worth exploring, that doesn't have emptiness in it. A lot of people criticizing Starfield for having a lot of open and unused space or reused space. And I think if they can kind of bulk up on those areas that gamers have been having trouble with recent releases, I think they could really have a gold mine here.
I love these quotes that provide additional context to the gameplay mechanic and an additional insight as to where Ubisoft Massive is coming from. Because like right here, he says, one of the core parts of the scoundrel fantasy is having your own ship, and that essentially being your home. Outlaws are traveling constantly and need to be on the move all the time, and that's no different for Kay. And he continues with, you'll be able to go from on foot to speeder to your ship and easily jump between planets. And then he goes on to provide some additional information about the traversal mechanics in this game, where it says, as well as traveling to the well-trod sands of Tatooine, the humid jungles of Akiva, and the treacherous mountains of Kijimi, which I gotta say, Andreas, I'm incredibly excited to have a game where we can actually go down to Kijimi. You know, Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga didn't exactly let us do it. We could go into Kijimi local space, and we could just stare at it, so it's nice to actually be able to have a game that will let us go down and explore Kijimi outside of a main story mission. But it continues, I digress, with saying Ubisoft Massive has created its own bespoke hive of scum and villainy, the arid, windswept moon of Toshara. And he says, we want to allow fans to indulge in some intergalactic tourism. Andreas, that is the quote of this entire article. That got me out of my seat when I read this. That is so exciting because if you know one thing, if you followed this channel long enough, we love the globe-trotting adventure stories. And to read intergalactic tourism, to have a Star Tours-like experience, is exactly what I am looking for in this game. So that quote right there got me incredibly excited. And he finishes by saying, but we're also really excited for them to experience new characters and planets in this iconic era as well. Andreas, this all sounds phenomenal. Of course, we knew we were going to be able to, explore some of these open world mechanics and open world planets, and we knew that some of the maps are going to be the size of 2 or so sectors of the AC Odyssey map. Like, we know some of this stuff, but just to hear the intentions behind this open world, very exciting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I don't know what more I could want out of a Star Wars game than multiple planets with dense environments, dense cities, and being able to go between those different planets and really explore, engage in what they're calling intergalactic tourism. I can't wait to be a tourist in some of these areas, like Kijimi, like you were mentioning, and flaming Lego Star Wars for. I really want to explore Kijimi. That's a planet that I'd love to see what's going on at this particular point in the Star Wars timeline. I'm really curious to see what is going on there, because there's not a lot in literature about what is going on in Kijimi at this particular point in time between episodes 5 and 6. We've been to Tatooine in a lot of games, but I'm interested to see Ubisoft's take on Tatooine. How are they going to make it fresh? Because, and this could be a whole other conversation for another day, Nick, but a lot of games have tried to bring a approach and their own expression of Tatooine. A lot of shows have brought their own and sometimes different expressions of Tatooine between the movies and the different anthology projects that we've received. I'm curious to see what Ubisoft's expression of Tatooine is. What locations will they pick? Where are they going to take us in Tatooine that'll make it feel fresh but still familiar? I really can't wait to see all of their takes in that regard. Now up next, this interview goes into some of the gameplay mechanics of this game, and it starts off with this quote here saying, "Space represents a super lucrative yet very risky experience for any outlaw. If you go off the beaten path, your willingness to explore will bring surprises as well. So you can go from taking on a contract to steal an Imperial shipment, but then get distracted on your speeder and head off into the Toshara savannah in search of an artifact, and the game will reward your curiosity." Nick, this is something that I think is essential for an open world game. You need curiosity to be rewarded, because I don't know about you, but for me, my favorite open world games are ones that I'm not even particularly following the objectives of the game or the main storyline. I'm kind of just wandering around, finding things on my own terms, and being interested in areas, seeing an area and off in the distance and thinking, I'm going to go explore that and see what I can find, and that actually being rewarded. So if this is a promise that they're actually going to capitalize on, then I'm 100% for it.
Yeah, I completely agree. It sounds like some Space Indiana Jones vibes going on up in here. And this interview continues with, players can use quests with each of the syndicates to manage Kay's reputation, which will impact the jobs they offer and the impact they'll have on throughout the story. We've known this for a while now. Each player will have a different profile with each of the syndicates based on how they've interacted with them over the course of her journey. And then he finishes off here with some stuff about some of the characters, and then just one little thing about the gameplay walkthrough that was shown. He says, and Khavari hints that Jabba won't be the only recognizable face here. We can't wait for players to explore the world of Outlaws and discover any references to the wider Star Wars galaxy for themselves. Andreas, this is incredibly excited because, like you said earlier on, this is taking place with those little bounty hunter wars over, Han Solo frozen in carbonite. We saw him frozen in carbonite in the trailer. We've seen Jabba the Hutt. Like, here we have the potential for characters like, a Boba Fett, a Bosk maybe. Kira, I really would like to see Kira show up in this project. This seems like the perfect time to get her re-involved in Star Wars, especially since it's been a long time, outside of Solo and a few appearances in that bounty hunter comic line. They're not doing a whole lot with her character, and I think she's a very interesting character that they should continue to explore and flush out just because she is so complex in her intention. So I'd love to see Kira show up in this game. Like, there's a lot of potential for some of those bounty hunters and underworld characters that we all know and love to show up in this game.
Yeah, there are. I mean, this is a really great opportunity, and I think this article pokes fun at this being an opportunity to play with Boba Fett. I mean, this is really one of those last opportunities that we can get to play around with Boba Fett as the bounty hunter that he ought to be, and not the clown that he is on Disney+. But I digress. This article finishes by saying, what you saw in our gameplay walkthrough shown at our announcement was real-time in-engine footage, and we're confident will deliver a quality level that our players and fans expect. Nick, this is a real question mark for Ubisoft. A lot of people saying that Ubisoft is just incapable of producing a polished product, and this is just going directly at that, saying that they have put together a polished product, so polished in fact that incredible demonstration that we've all seen with our eyes at this point, and that you will have been watching throughout us talking in this video, that is real-time in-engine footage. So that's really the mic drop here. I mean, I think this is something that we've known for a while, but again, it just gives us an additional context. They're bringing that up again because they're no strangers to the discourse around this game online. They know what people are saying in the comments. People are doubting Massive. People are doubting Ubisoft's label being attached to this game, saying that there's no way that it could be the quality that they showed, that it's too good to be true. And again, they are harping on this yet again, that this is real-time in-engine footage. This game is going to be the quality that they are promising with this incredible demonstration that they've shown us.
Yeah, the only thing that we can do is take them for what they're saying and the 10 minutes or so that they've shown us. And so far, they're saying the right things and they're showing the right things. So, we're not going to know for sure until we get more gameplay and get our hands on it. But so far, so good. I don't personally have a reason to doubt them outside of, if you're just not confident that it's a Ubisoft game and it's coming from Massive. We've seen a lot of people, last thing I want to say, we've seen a lot of people in our comments over the last week talk about, oh, look at Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. That game didn't go very well. But what I would counter with that is they confirmed a few months ago that Ubisoft Massive actually split to be able to take on those games at the same time. So the team that worked on Avatar was not the same team that worked on Star Wars Outlaws. And I'm pretty sure actually the team that worked on Outlaws is actually a bigger team, and they're bringing in a ton of additional studios to work on this game. So whatever you experienced with Avatar, don't take that to mean that's what this game is going to be like, because it's a completely different team of devs. So, again, like we've been saying, I think it's totally fair to be cautiously optimistic about this game, but I don't think we've read anything, and I don't think we've seen anything that points us towards being negative and expecting the worst with this game, because it really sounds like Ubisoft Massive has worked incredibly hard with Lucasfilm to put forth a story and gameplay experience that we will all love, and I hope that is the case. So guys, let us know your thoughts down below on all of this information that we got in this article, and One other thing that I would like to ask of all of you, Andreas and I have been sitting down and working on an idea for video about all things Star Wars hot takes. So what I need from you is to go down below in the comments and give me your hottest Star Wars take. And if it is good enough, it might just make its way into our video down the road, where we will be providing some of our own Star Wars hot takes, analyzing some of our community's hot takes, and just hopefully having a good time getting mad at each other. Honestly, it's going to be a great time when we get this video put together, but I'm going to need that guy from all of you guys. Anyway, that is going to do it for us for this one. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, we will see you all next time.